Om Shanti, everyone. Thanks for those of you able to join here live, and also warm greetings to you joining in later on through the YouTube video. If you haven't tuned in before, my name is Shailen, and myself and my mother, we are students of the Brahma Kumari Centre of London. And these chit chats are geared as like an informal way to go into deeper thoughts about the Murli and to clarify some aspects of the Murli. So, Shailaben, can I hand over to you? You wanted to ask something.
Good morning, Shanti. So recently Baba's talking about the accurate introduction of him, and he keeps saying that he's the one who has to come here and give his introduction, and that is the accurate way of knowing him. Can you please clarify on that? We know what that means, but why and what is the importance of that? I mean, I know that's the difference between bhakti, but what is it that he's trying to emphasize there as well? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good question. So, as you suggest, it's to do definitely with bhakti in the first instance. What you find is that there are some differences between the major religions in how God gives his introduction. So you've got traditions like Hinduism, which talk about the incarnations of God. And popular incarnations of Vishnu are said to be 24. But you find that with actually many gods in many ways, or like they're all seen as different incarnations of different deities, or like they're like three main deities, and all the other gods are also incarnations of them. And then you also find that if you ask a Hindu who wrote the scriptures, and they will talk about the rishis, the great rishis of old, they also won't talk about them like people, but they would give them a similar status to a god. And they would feel that they are also like an incarnation of God in that way. And so if you talk to the average Hindu person, or even a scholar of what is known as Indology, and Indology means the study of things that are Indian, really, but they specifically focus upon primary texts of Hinduism. So, an Indologist, they tend not to study interpretations, but they go back to the primary original text. And when you say, what is the original text? They will say the Vedas, and Vedas is not text, but that's for the oral tradition of the Vedas and the Upanishads, or the original sutras or something like that. So the tradition of Hinduism is like the wisdom of the gods is passed through the rishis, and then the rishis are writing the scriptures, and then we've got saints along the way that have interpreted that and added, and then modern day gurus will interpret that. And like that. Then you have the perceptions of, say, Buddhism. I'm not a Buddhist expert, but my understanding is like they would always look at the wisdom within. So like having a look at like a God within and a wisdom within. So they're meditating with the feeling that they will discover, not necessarily looking outside, but looking inside. And they, of course, have many scriptures and many teachings. Again, they would study the teachings of the Buddha and many other Bodhigayas, many other Bodhis, and they would study all of that. Then you've got more of the Abrahamic traditions, and Baba was mentioning Abraham today in Murli. And the Abrahamic traditions are the traditions of the Middle East. And first of all, Abraham's story is of like being anti-idol worshipping. And he's said to be the nephew of an idol maker. And Bible tells us that the religious father enters, so Abraham would have been the name of the body, the bodily being, but then the religious father will have come, and he's focusing everyone back on God being one, being incorporeal. And they have a tradition in the Abrahamic uh, religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam of series of prophets. And they will have many, many different prophets throughout the many centuries, all considered to be like a some sort of like wisdom they're bringing, some sort of divine insight that they're all bringing. And then something that Salva then was explaining last week was with the Prophet Muhammad in Islam, they would consider, say, Jesus to be a prophet, but they will consider the Prophet Muhammad to be the final, the ultimate prophet. And she was saying that he was the prophet according to Islam since his birth, but he was the messenger for 23 years of that. And Baba tells us that the religious father enters the body, so it's like there was Muhammad the person, and she was explaining that they write that way, that whereas Muhammad will say as well that I am with you, I am one of the people, but the messenger comes later, and the messenger teaches the Quran. So you find this thing of the messenger as well. You've got the prophet, the messengers, you've got the founders, and you've got the rishis, the munis, and many others. And then you also find many devotees, they work on the basis of inspiration, of prerna. So a lot of devotion is based on this. So someone has some dream, someone has some experience, someone has some feeling. So mostly people are not rational. They don't take decisions based upon facts. Mostly people will take decisions based on feeling. So again, people will just interpret whatever the scriptures they say. Most people don't know what's really in the scriptures. They don't read that closely or study anything that much. So what they're doing is they are just going on the basis of their feeling, their interpretation of what is God. So Buddha depicts all of this as a tree of religion. And he tells us that we started off at the beginning of the copying, worshipping just one incorporeal Rudra Shiva. And then if all of this spread, so we've ended up at the end of the Iron Age with too many interpretations. So it's like a tree with so many branches and so many leaves and so many other things. Actually, we can't see them. You're not clear at all. Well, our problem at this time is not that we haven't got spirituality, but we got too many types, too many versions. So that is saying that actually I don't, all of the things you thought I do, where you thought I give my introduction through someone else, I pass on something through someone else, I send someone to give you a message on my behalf. I don't do any of it. I come myself and I give my own introduction. And this is also why within the BK culture, the broad messages don't have the same status as the modern. And early days when Brahma Baba became an angel, and the first of Murli was the 21st of January, 1969. And only Chit Baba came and said he goes out body to speak that early. And he makes that comment actually, that um, the Gold messages don't have the same magic that a Morley has. And why we focus on the Morley is because the Gold messages are useful for sure, and we do listen to them and pay attention and take from those. But there can still be percentage where the messenger, the sister, she's forgotten something, or she's interpreted something her own way, or she's added some words. So it won't be verbatim because it's hard to remember everything verbatim. And this is why we don't give the whole messages the same status as the morning. And this is the message that Baba is giving, that you must study the morally because that's the only text which is verbatim of what I am telling you I have. You want to come back?
Yeah, that makes sense actually. Is that the clarity is through the Murli, really, not. And I'm glad you clarified the Bhog message aspect of it as well, because I was thinking about that. Because we didn't really understand coming into Gyan recently the importance of Bhog message as well, and or how to interpret it as well, because there is so much in the Murli, it's hard to remember all of it in the first place. So I was thinking how to understand this. So yeah, no, thank you for clarifying that aspect as well. So yeah, no, it's really good to know why, and yeah, it's a lot of interpretation done by a lot of people, even for Gita, isn't it?
Yeah,
People have interpreted Gita in many, many ways, and different meanings have been taken out from there. So if
right.
Baba gives the clear message is what we need to follow. But the aspect about service, when we are trying to explain that to others, they would come back and say, how do you know this is what God said?
Right.
And how do you serve those people? Because I have had those examples in the house, and they're, obviously wanting the clarity. To be honest, I would like some clarity on that as well. How would you serve those souls?
Right. So, as you say, with the status firstly of the morally and the Borg messages, how I interpret that is that Buddha's used both from the beginning. And yeah, the daddies, some of them used to be trance messengers in Karachi and Hyderabad. And every day they used to go into trance and bring messages, and they were discovering knowledge as well that way. And they had Baba's morally. Baba used to write the morally and send it to Mama, and then Mama would read it. So Baba always tells us in the moralies that you won't miss anything. You will also have these experiences later on. So just like they had that opportunity for those gold messages, that's my interpretation that we are also getting those chances now to experience what that was like. But as you say, it doesn't have the status of a morally. And I always like same with any class as well. So it's always good to listen to people's classes. And nowadays, I don't listen to too many. So I listen to some, and I do enjoy some sometimes. But I would say over the last 20 years, I haven't listened to too many classes. Early days, I was listening to a lot, and so I absorbed a lot of information. And for me, you see, I was always very used to diligently reading the Morley every day, giving class every day, and that. So if I do listen to classes, I tend to go back to her classes. And again, her classes have a certain status because after Mama became, Baba was mentioning this a few days ago in the Morley as well, that your Mama, she was very good. She was like a magnet. and so many people used to come and listen to her classes. So he was talking in the past tense, so it was probably a Murli from 1966 or 1967. And it was at that time that then Didi Manmohini, she really took over the duties that Mama was playing in terms of managing the Yagya. And as Brahmins came to Madhubal, then Baba was meeting them morning and evening, but who else was going to give classes? So it used to be Mama, of course, but then the first time Daddy Janki was asked by Didi to give class, and she said she was really surprised because until then, none of the daddies would give class in Madhubal in the history hall because the seniors were Mama and Baba. So everyone is going to meet them. But that started from then. So Devi Janki became the main class woman after Mama. And then I can recall in the 1980s, many times when, especially when double foreigners were meeting Baba personally, Baba himself would say that, okay, he would say, take up a topic. Let's say um, someone has asked Baba about how to balance their relatives and their life and do all of these spiritual things, something like that. I've heard Baba say, well, Janet will give a class on it. He used to just ask her to give a class on it. So even Baba had a lot of regard for her classes, and I saw that directly. So therefore, I tend to stick with that. And then in recent times, well, a lot of my foundation also Sister Sudesh and Sister Janti. So these are the three main teachers in London. And so I've gained a lot of information from them. And then in recent times, I think Didi Mohini has really taken up that role of Devi Janti. And so again, I do tune into her classes. We've got Suryabai coming to the University of Birmingham next Friday. I'll send you all details of that. And I do enjoy his classes before Baba comes. And I sometimes play his meditation commentaries that I'm with as well. So I tend to listen to some few, but I'm a little bit selective as well. Because you've got so much now, so many things. And I tend to just, as you can tell from what I recall, very morally focused. So I worry a little bit about Brahmin missing the seed and getting sort of absorbed in the tree of Brahmin. And that can be very easy because our habit is having gurus. So the Brahmins are bodily beings, and our habit is to want a bodily being. But actually, the Murli is the seed. And it's very, very important. And that's why I tend not to actually give more classes. I personally choose to keep it quite limited and everything focused on the morally because I worry that I could distract everyone away from them. And I think that that's like you got to be consciously aware as you became of that. That it's very easy for someone to get impressed and very easy for us to try and impress others. That's what we've been doing. But our job is to connect everyone with the seed so that they don't need us. They can just take from the Murli. That's the job of the DK teacher. And then as of course, we've got different audiences that we have to explain to. And if I'm being very honest, I'm not that convinced a lot of the time when Baba's knowledge is presented because of the way it's positioned. I don't think, some people, some branders, they like to try and position it like a science or like some sort of factually based thing. And I just think you get nowhere with that. There's totally nowhere. And I spoke at a conference a few years back about the cycle. And again, I was asked, So what are you saying? Is this a science or something like that? And can you imagine if I said yes, and I'm talking about, how do I prove this? The golden age, and because you could have archaeologists in the crowd, or some expert is sitting there, and I'm making some claims. They will definitely shoot me down because they will have knowledge that I don't have. So I just said, no, this is a philosophy. This is not- then they don't, then they can't shoot me down because I can have a philosophy, and that can be something I choose to believe. So my personal view is that we should be just positioning this as a philosophy, not as a science. But when you have a philosophy, or even really as a science, to be honest as well, there's always an element of faith because Baba says the foundation is faith. There are so many Brahmins that want to have some sort of seminar. Let's prove that there's a soul. Let's prove that there's God. How do you do this? And how? I just don't see that there's any way of doing it. So what you tend to find, especially Brahmins, when I was younger, they don't ask me so much now, but when I was younger, many BK families, they used to ask me to their houses to convince their children because, oh, my child keeps asking me questions and they want to believe in science. And I just tell them, just believe it. It's just that they want to be convinced. And I just never get into this because, where can you can lead yourself down a path, really. So what we tend to do then, as you said, the other side is if we begin to debate with Hindus about, this. So if I'm being very honest, I don't know why Baba is so bothered about Krishna being the god of the Gita or omnipresent, because I personally don't think most Hindus, they're not even thinking about these things. Like, I don't know. I always say this to Baba. This is my personal chit chat with Baba. I always say, Baba, why are you so bothered about it? No one is bothered about this. Like, to the average Hindu, if Shiva is god of the Gita or Krishna is god of the Gita, I don't think it matters at all. But why Baba wants to focus on something that then becomes controversial? I always say to him, I don't think we should bother with it because you're inviting someone to then argue back at you. Whereas, in fact, if we just leave that and just focus on, like, even in the scriptures, it's very, very clear, um, Rudra Shiva, like, there's two types of Shiva, and you can find that type of thing in the scripture. You don't need to debate about it. So the way I explain it, and if you attend, it's online as well next Friday's Surya program, and when I introduce it as well, I'm going to just in essence say that we as BKs, we believe in Rudra Shiva. And how they describe it in the scriptures is at the time of creation, out of Brahma's Brukuti, Rudra Shiva Pragata. And he was like this sun, like a fiery light. Hazar Suryo se Tejune. That's where this comes from. The Rudra Shiva is Hazar Suryo se Tejune, brighter than 1,000. And they talk of him coming out of Brahma's forehead. I mean, it's just perfect. So I don't need to debate the thing that no one will believe when I can just focus on this point, which is already there. And it helps me then to just explain, yeah, there's two Shivas. Many of you will know Shiva Shankar, but the one that Brahmakumari is focused on is Rudra Shiva. And this is the picture of Rudra Shiva that like you can see behind me. So this is Rudra Shiva. Then this picture is actually on my wall, and I even have it in all of my work meetings. It's behind me. So I've had one professor, he just looked at it and goes, that's a beautiful picture. I'm so pleased. And then my head of department looked at it and goes, oh, that's a nice picture. What is it? So I just explained, oh, it's the atom, the essence of life, where everything started from, the point of creation. So even people from a Western background, they they will also the point. Now that is beyond that. That is absolutely fact that everything is a point. That is a fact. So I tend to think where I definitely am on solid ground. So with the general audiences, the point. We know everything is made of particles. Everything is a point. And then you go into the depth of it. We know everything is a nucleus. We know everything is protons and electrons. We know that is how the universe is made of. And Baba tells us everything is a point. And we know the energy from the point because nuclear energy is the energy of the sun on this earth is actually filled inside every particle. Isn't that amazing? It's totally amazing that that is even possible. So if that is unleashed, if that can be unleashed, that the energy of the sun was filled within the particles down here, and it is unleashed, then it's not that much of a leap to say either soul and a and that either soul, like Baba said today, I'm a wonderful soul with a huge part recorded in me. And that's a unique thing, actually, that one, that the soul is an actor and the soul has a role recorded within that. So that's where there's these few things where it's very unique. That's where I add in the uniqueness, but otherwise I'm sticking on very solid ground like that. Rudra Shiva and the point form like that. And then everyone accepts the cycle anyway, generally, like Hindus and Sikhs. But I just say, well, the difference is that Brahma Kumaris think it's the end of the Iron Age, whereas most others, they think it's like the beginning of the Iron Age. That's the difference. So we think going to move quickly towards the Golden Age. And then a few months ago, I was at an event, and you see many people they know about Brahma Kumaris. These were Punjabi ladies, they were Sikh ladies, and they know about Brahma Kumaris, and most of them they don't like, or they got some impression of what Brahma Kumaris say. So they're not really arguing against actually what we say. They're arguing against some impression of what they think we say. And so it was immediately yes, but you know there were सत्युग में भी तो असुर थे असुर देव there was also all of these demons in the golden age because this is how it's shown in the scriptures. You see, in Hinduism, there's a lot of all of the deities are shown as lustful and angry, and like those vices are always there in everything. And so I just said to her, yeah, but Daddy Janki taught us that if we get rid of the vices now, it won't be in the next subject, even if they were in the previous one. I said, oh. So she seems to accept that one because if I get into the cycle repeating identically, that's just way, way too much. So I just said, okay, yeah, okay, the demons were there in the previous subject, but we don't want them in the next. So we got to get rid of the inner demons now, and then like I think I mentioned it, I had a steep taxi driver when I was in New York picked us up from one of my immediate activity classes, and he was like very deep into his philosophy. So he was saying to me, "No, Kali the bacha hi hai, abhi zaro hua hai, it's only just begun." And I just said, but he was also, and I was telling him about Maini Didi, she's there 60 years. He was saying to me as well, yeah, okay, but मैं तो शास्त्र पढ़ा लिखा हूँ, परंतु उनकी तपस्या है. He was like very like I think there's also something where like I find that BKs they don't like it when I describe Devi Janki as my guru. They was like we don't have guru, but the whole world, no matter what I say, will see Devi Janki as my guru. Like it doesn't matter whether I call her my guru or not. How they understand it, but in the BK mentality, guru has become like some sort of really bad thing. But guru just means teacher. Like guru in the average person's mind, guru is a positive. They don't see this as a negative thing. Your guru, like you have a dance guru, you have a music guru. Like, why would you have to say this is negative? So again, I'm different to most people because I'm very happy to say that to most people. Oh yeah, my David Benke was my guru, and he taught me all these things. So if someone is saying, "Oh no, the Iron Age is just the child, just beginning, I will say, yeah, but my guru said to me that it's the end of the army. And Mini Didi was just saying this to us. But then he couldn't say anything because he doesn't want to argue against the 60-year tapasya. So he said, so the way he put it was, मैंने तो बस शास्त्र मेरी तो बुद्धि का ज्ञान है लेकिन दीदी जी का तो तपस्या का ज्ञान. So that's the way he reasoned it in his mind as well. That, because you can't really argue against these saints like that. If they have some subtle interpretation, even a scholar will not argue. So again, I use that even just to, like, it's not that I am saying this because it's not my knowledge anyway. It's Baba's knowledge. So, like, the leaflet that I made for Surya by which I think that probably changed it to be, but I wrote in that in 1964, the young Surya, he met the master Raj Yogi Brahma Baba, which left a great impact because actually the average person, the authority is from the guru. Like you studied with this guru who studied from this, so that's the way they understand it. So I am quite comfortable with it. Like that, but most Brahmins, they are like, they don't like it. They're very afraid that we shouldn't be. Brahmin Baba wouldn't like it if we saw him as a guru, like that type of thing. But I personally do it like that. And then it makes sense to people. Then I find they don't agree. They don't argue with me, really. I just present that this is the way that my gurus taught me. So I'm happy to have it. Works for me. But
Yeah,
if you're
that's
asking me, yeah, but if you're asking me to prove this, I'm not going to prove anything.
Yeah, actually, I like that. I really like that. Actually, that's using our, being sensible, really, like Baba says, because when you listen to the Murli and you soak in everything what Baba says, like you said, all Brahmins do is just that, what Baba says, and that's it. Not using our intellect to interpret for the general public for seva, and that's what we need to be doing, really. So I really like that. And the example you mentioned about, proving about these, even kids at home, they ask the same questions, which I cannot answer, and but to keep it generic, I mean, I've only learned that now because I've already spread out everything I knew as soon as I came into Gyan. So they keep asking, why you, staying vegetarian is fine for them, but it's like not eating onion and garlic is a big problem for my daughter anyway. I don't want to go into too much personal detail, but that sort of thing, they find it hard to see the change, within yourself and not being able to explain it to to them because, uh, you know, certain things, unless and until you actually understand it thoroughly and have confidence, and like today Baba said, you need to have that courage as well and power, which we don't accumulate, then we cannot explain. And but these conversations, like with yourself, I mean, has opened up quite a lot of ideas. So thank you for that. Really, really appreciate this. And it's something been going on in the mind on how to serve people in a different way, because obviously there has to be newness. Yes, people have the understanding of Brahma Kumaris in their own way, but having come into knowledge without knowing Brahma Kumaris, there are many souls out there who don't know. And there would be a best way to serve them. Even Hindus, if nothing else, even in the family, just to, it doesn't have to be the detailed knowledge, but it's what they need. If we can serve with that, to have that understanding, to have that sense, is what was going on in mind and how to serve them, because it's starting with us, really, isn't it? To have that understanding, to have the knowledge to serve. So first point is to empower oneself, right? And you touched on the topic of classes and Dadi Janki's class. I've seen some of them on YouTube, not seen many. Whatever I've seen, I've listened to. But yeah, definitely we'll go over that again. And but having said that, when I came into Gyan in 2020, it was all online, right? So we had the whole world within our grasp, with our fingertips, really. So we've heard so many lessons, so many classes. It's like literally overload. But things have, I've stopped listening to many. And now that, when you have the time to actually absorb what you've listened to and actually put it into practice what you listen, and especially from Baba's Murli, and putting everything together into like a jigsaw puzzle makes it. Um, I'm glad that I did listen to many aspects and makes Murli understanding a lot easier as well. So, and been very fortunate to be able to understand Hindi and listening to Hindi classes from brothers and sisters from Madhuban as well. So, yeah, very grateful, really, really, grateful. But yeah, it's just the aspect of service because, Baba always mentions, and last couple of Murlis, Baba's emphasized a lot on this aspect of service. And I was always thinking the newness in that because we can just do the course and yes, it's easy maybe. Um, but I think it does need your own journey to have your own convictions, like Nishchay, Baba always says to have that, to explain to others with your own experiences, to give them the experience. I think that's what is coming into mind now, and how to take it forward. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think you see, Sudhir always says that you've got to serve your family through your activity and behavior, and you serve others through it. And I think there's generally that is a good thing to keep in mind. It's a tricky one with the onion and garlic thing. I think I just tend to, people do know what a sattvic diet is, and you do get those temple priests and things that they follow that sattvic. I think even at the goal of the Sikh temple, we do, the Golden Temple and things. I think that's also sattvic. And so we just are saying that, we're following the sattvic diet or like a Jain diet, so people know about that. And then that helps our meditative practice. But it's more difficult than to make other members of the family. And particularly if you're a mother, you're doing the cooking. I think that, on one side, if you can have some control in that. And like we have our uncle living with us as well. And well, he has to just go and buy his onion garlic and eat whatever he wants to do and do it that way. I think that you have to find a way to try and do it and so that we can maintain our principles. But over a while, they then do begin to appreciate. I was 18 years old when I first went to America, and I was, young and very enthusiastic about knowledge, and it was all like I was taking it much more seriously since I was 16. So I was very, very focused, and I was very, very accurate as well. And my father, he had married again and he wasn't a BK. And he had asked me, I think he thought that once I see America, I'll let go of all this nonsense and sort of just go out there and become a normal materialistic guy and get married and whatever. So I think that was his motive of wanting me to go to America. And it was my cousin's general ceremony. And his uncle lives in Pennsylvania. So I just said no. I mean, why would I go? So I said to her, no, I don't want to go. And then I mentioned it to Lady Genti, and she was so enthusiastic that I should go. I was just so surprised. He said, oh, you don't? So then I called him up and said, oh, yeah, okay, I changed my mind. I will come. And she said to me that sometimes in the drama, these things happen for service. So, okay. So I thought to myself, okay, I'll go and I'll try and also visit New York as well and see, maybe we see something. So we went and I said, okay, if I come, I've got a condition. I have to do my own cooking. And I have to have so they had a big house. They built it themselves as well. So in America, they all have basements, don't they? And there's quite a large basement area. So they gave me the whole basement area. It had my own kitchen. And, and even my cousins even still remember I used to be really good at making bread in those days. Now I just do it all in the machine. But I used to make bread by my own hands. And I cooked the whole time by myself. And I did get one chance for service where it was the Janmashtami program at the Mandir. And there in America, they don't mind driving far. Like everything seems to be really far. But the Indian community is quite big. They all drive far and gather for these big programs. And so then they said to me, well, do I want to give a little speech afterwards? So I actually did get a chance, 10 minutes in front of the hall to give a little bit of knowledge. I was happy because Daddy had had that thought that, in drama, some service happened. And then, you see, it was quite funny because I was up at 4 having meditation. Then, although they had a kitchen outside, actually, they were quite sweet. So even in their main kitchen, they were not, the whole time we were there, my auntie was also there from English. She was also vegetarian. So they had taken out all of the meat of the house anyway. And even in the fridge, they'd labeled Ceylon's oranges. So they were really trying. They bought me new pots and everything, new pots and everything. So they were really, really trying to accommodate me. And what would happen is I would finish Amrit Vela at 4:45 and then read the Murli. So I'd make a cup of tea. And my uncle, he's a doctor, and he used to work 7 a.m. till 2 p.m. or something like that. And then he would get up at 4. And he was a smoker. So it was this really funny theme. He would say, oh, Ben, come and sit with me on the veranda. So he had this veranda. So he's sitting on one side of the veranda with his cigarette, reading his newspaper. I'm sitting the other end of the veranda reading the moral with a microphone. And this we did every day. It was like this thing. And the final day, when I was leaving, he said to me, I was only 18, and he's like my uncle. He's an uncle. And he said, "Ben, I learned a lot from your stay because he's had like Morari Babu, Ramesh Bhai Oza, they've all stayed in his house. Like, that's how it happens, isn't it? The families, they sponsor and they call these gurus over. And he said, none of them cooked their own food in all that time. They just ordered the pizza from the thing. And I saw you every day because I also took my bulk train, my bulk clock. They saw all of that, like I was offering. I did everything for them. And then they said, all they do is they sit around, they're using my phone to call India. Oh, they're like, this is before the internet. So they're calling India, like how expensive, but they expect that. They expect they can just do anything when they're staying in their house and they're your guests, so you can't say anything. And so he was saying that's his impression of the guru. And here, this young spiritual boy is actually living in England, doing all of this. Even now, when I go back to India, like none of my relatives or cousins are following. So I'm living in England, going back there. They're so impressed. They're totally amazed. But they just give the credit to Betty Jenkins. They just say, oh, yeah, Betty Jenkins is doing good. Even looking after my mother, like in India now, the trend is that people think that, oh, Indian families, they look after their, but actually, I don't think that it really is the case a lot of the time at all. And so they are just so, and they just give the credit, oh, yeah, Betty Jenkins taught me that I must do this. And Betty Jenkins taught me these values. So this is how I think with our families. It's totally about how we behave, our lifestyle. They notice everything we're doing, but they're not going to listen to knowledge from us. So, like that uncle and auntie I heard, I don't know if you've been to Pandabhavan, haven't you? I don't know if you met Keshav Bhai, who's in the VIP dining room there. Did you meet him? Are
So
you in? Did you
Which
meet
one?
Keshabai? He's in the
No.
VIP dining room. So Keshabai is like my big brother, like a uncle. So when I was a child, I was a very fussy eater, so I didn't need to eat anything. Like, I don't know. Especially when you travel, I didn't like to eat anywhere. Anything. So he sort of gave me a lot of love. The only thing I used to eat is chips and pakora. So they used to just get that for me. And so I did my early service with him in the VIP dining room. And he told me that that uncle and auntie had passed through Mount Abu and ate there in the VIP dining room and said, "Oh yeah, we got a nephew, Shayla, and he came and stayed with us." I said, "Oh, I know Shayla." And actually they reached Motherbuck. And so it was about 4 years afterwards. They So you see, you never know, but they had in their mind, and they said, "Oh yeah, Shailen was right. This is a great place." And so they were left with that, and they had that fortune of Brahmabhujan as well. So that's great. Um, so you never know how this serves. And then that family, we got family in Rajkot and around that area of Gujarat. And when I went last time in 2019, a couple of them, they live in Baroda, I think, near the center there. They've already gone on a yoga Shivir at the center and things. So you never know. Another uncle and auntie, they went to one of Shivani Ben's retreats in Zanzibar. So, like, they know they won't take the knowledge from you, but then they mean, "Oh yeah, we went to Nanjab. Oh yeah, we went to the center." And so they will listen to someone else giving that, but they will watch us for the behavior and the like. So that will be my advice. And then for the giving of the knowledge to others, I think, especially over the years, I mean, we all are changing over the years as well, but I think I'm getting a better idea of my role. So initially I was brought up with this. You're trying to sort of be many things. Like you think that you should be like someone surrendered in the center, like this and that. But now I just play a role like of supporting what the center wants to do. And like Baba says, I've learned over the years, especially as a brother, we've got to put the sisters in the crowd. We've got to do, so I tend not to even give very many DK lectures or things like that. But very happy to organize things for the sisters to come. So I think it's also about understanding our role as well. And then like the daily classes, that sort of happened a lot through COVID and things. So that type of Morley revision thing, again, people appreciate the analysis, especially actually if they are longer in it. They appreciate it even more because it gives them freshness sometimes. Um, so that's become a nice role, just to turn the Morley, just to package it and put it in another way. Because it's in that way and it's in English, there's not so many in English. There are many in Hindi, but not so many in English. Again, that I found has been useful. These chit chats again, but like some brothers and sisters say to me that, "Oh, well, we should promote your channel. We should promote this." I tell everyone that we're not promoting anything. We're not here to promote me. We're just going to promote what the centers do. So I always stop everything like that. I mean, I don't like word of mouth if someone says, this is the channel, but never should we advertise what I'm doing. We've got to advertise what the sisters are. At the center, we've got to put the sisters in. And I hadn't noted until this year, because we're hearing every Sunday the Murlis of 95, I hadn't noted that every Murli he spoke about Brahmins wanting names, saying like Nam, Mansha. I remembered him saying it once, but actually now I can see very clearly he keeps coming back to this. And last Sunday was the second time he mentioned this thing of that if you put someone else in front, even if you could have done it, but you gave them the chance to do the service, you get a sense. So you don't need to worry. Like it gets, aapka jama ka khata to badh gaya. So it's understanding this. So over the years, I've also got better at this, just understanding, okay, what is my role? What is Baba saying? What does he want me to do? And like, for example, the Disturia by program, I'm getting a lot of blessings from the sister at the center. And that's because it was a very last minute, all just sort of sudden, just given a date and everything. And because I'm working at a university, I got the rooms, I got the halls, we can do it all and host it that way. So it's understanding, what is go, and then at different places as well, I find my role is different. So like you said, like in the family, it's different. Then at work, I get a lot of blessings from my colleagues for just being calm and peaceful. And it was strange. I wasn't expecting it in my, like they have an appraisal with your manager every year. And he mentioned to me that you're like an ocean of calm. So, so they do notice these things, they notice these things of how are you handling pressure? How are you handling? So with my colleague with that, and then I was going to have a look at the room for Surya Bai's event on Thursday, and I was talking with one of my colleagues, and she said, "Oh, yeah, what are you thinking of doing?" And I said, "Oh, a mindfulness." Yeah, but we're using the word mindfulness. That's a good one as well because everyone knows what that is. And then she said to me, "Oh, last January I went on a mindfulness retreat." Right? So never has she mentioned anything in all these years that she has any. And then suddenly, turns out that she has any. If you're going to be organizing something regular, I would be quite interested. If she paid to go on like that, and obviously we wouldn't have. So it's you see, it's understanding the role. So I think what I can do there at the university is in Oxford University, I was the founder of Oxford University Meditation Society because I had assumed someone would set up a meditation society and no one had. So I just set it up. And again, we use that. But it's understanding, where. So, and then when I visit some centers, um, the Brahmins there very much will see me as like a senior to them. So they will want me and Ranjin Ben to sustain that. So where it's that situation, then I will play that. And we will give that feeling of the sustenance that Daddy gave us, pass it on. And that's our role for sure. But like we went to Belfast and I sent those photographs. This is the sort of thing Daddy Yankee used to do, just to come and visit us whenever any part you would travel and see people, giving that personal feeling. So I remember Daddy Yankee. And I thought, yes, I will go. We will go. And so, and that mother, she's 87, right? So in my mind as well, you never know. She's very healthy when the blood test is 100, but you never know. You're thinking, okay, let's take the opportunity. I did similar sort of thing in New York. And then when we were, say, like in Chicago and things, then the role there, again, with the center is much more like a camaraderie and we can do things together. Whereas I went to New York and there, nearly all of the teachers, they're longer in Gyan than us. They're older in Gyan. So my job is to be like a student and learn. Last week in Belfast, I had the opportunity for 2 days to sit in this wonderful, beautiful room with many of the chief executives and executives of local authorities from all four nations of the UK. So my first time in Belfast, I was sharing last week how um, for us, our generation, Belfast was a war zone, and you've got the scars of this. So staying in a lot of constant yoga just to spread the vibrations. But then I also had all these souls and instruments for building the community right across the country. So I was just remembering Baba in all the eight powers, just giving them all, understanding my role, like at that time, months later. At another time, speaking something. At another time, it's Murli. At another time, organizing the venue and letting someone else, So this, I don't think we should be saying, how do I do service? Like it's the one thing. But what Baba is expecting us is to discern. Like he said this morning, I think it was in the Avyakt point or in the blessing, that these say yogi, like even whatever anyone needs, have the balance of love and law, but added onto that, these say yogi. And the meaning of Sayog Shakti is being what that situation needs me to be. So, like Baba was mentioning the other day, how him and Mama used to be karma yogis as well. You know, that was what was needed at that time. And early days of Mount Abu was still like village life. So, in the villages of India, as you know, they make the gobar, like the yeah. So, Baba used to do this himself. And one of the daddies used to share that some visitor had come to Mount Abu and Baba was making the goba and the thing. And of course, it's dirty, it's smelly, and whatever. And she said to Baba, "Do you not want?" Baba said, "Oh, yeah, call him." And Baba, "Do you not want to shower and then and meet the guests?" And no, 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 call the child. And of course, your Baba must have been there as well, I think. So um, she was feeling a little embarrassed. She brought the guest. He saw Baba had a vision immediately. Had a vision of Baba. So it's understanding the what Baba was, why he made Brahma Baba do everything as well, was teaching us that it's the same. You got to be whatever needed that situation needs you to. If the center has a big program, they probably don't need us to be the speaker, but they need us to chop the vegetables, bring something else, move the chairs, like, and we won't gain in our account of service if I say, well, no, look, I'm a professor. Well, mm, the only thing I will do is give a lecture. So I have just made myself useless in this situation because the only thing I will do is that. But what Baba was saying, look, got money, use it up. Got a body, use it up. But you got to just be cooperative. And that's a yogi. So Baba says, yogi, mana, say yogi. This is the meaning of it. So say yog shakti means this. Out of the eight powers. So Baba says, okay, you got to give your anguli, go Govardhan Parvat, can be moved. So this means, anguli means Tanmandan Mansalaka Karma. But you have to have that power to adapt. So you will gain the blessing from someone if you can do it at the time of need, what needs to be done. So someone, for example, they've got some health issue or something, and there's someone they hurt their back, so you're lifting and carrying. You're going to get that blessing according to the time. So I think, I mean, Baba and Daddy teachers taught us this anyway over the years, but I think I got better and better. I'm getting better and better at this. It's just being very, very, like, not being tight. Like, there's some movies where Baba says, if you want to be an angel, this costume must be loose. This is the sign from De Abhiman to Dehi Abhimani. So the meaning of Dehi Abhimani means that we're not tight in our swabha. This is what this means. So when we're tight in our nature, no, I can only do this breath. I can only do this breath. So Baba says in the Murli, he he's quite strong actually because he doesn't like us getting into habits. So he says, some children, oh, I can only eat this type of food. Only rich, it has to be this. Or I can only eat at this time of day. I can only sleep at this time. Yeah, Brahma Baba would never have liked that. He likes routine when you're in your own place, but actually his attitude would be when you're visiting somewhere else, you've got to sort of blend with that center and do things in that way and just be whatever they need you to be. So this is all part of serving. We mustn't see service like it's an event, but service has to be constant. We have to be constant yogi, constant service. So constant yogi, of course, mantra and gun, so virtues and powers, we can do constant. And so when we're serving through virtues, it means this power to adjust. What does this person need me to be at this moment? And then if I can do it according to Srimat anyway, then I will gain that blessing.
Thank you. It seems to be very personal class just for me. So really enjoying these answers, really, because a lot of clarity there, and yeah, it makes sense. And was thinking about these lines, but I wasn't sure and I needed the clarity. So really, really helpful. Thank you for that.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I heard Maini Didi speaking the other day as well. She was saying that she likes listening. She used to listen to classes as well, like the daddies and that. But then by the end of the daddies, we listen, but then we also got to make that our own. You know, that knowledge has to also be our own. So she likes to listen, but then she thinks, what does this mean for me? And I think that that is very, very important. We've got to have a look at our role in the drama. And then how do we fill knowledge into that of the drama? And what the Morley's provide us, what streamers provide us, is our boundary. So, like for example, you can pretty much adjust to do most things with your daughters and like with your family members, but we know, okay, this is my boundary with what I eat. And this is my boundaries with my I keep my routine like that. So this is really what 3 months is. 3 months is just our boundary. But then within the boundary, how we do it, each brand has to use their discernment. We must not try and be like anyone else. And of course, when we're younger in knowledge or younger in body, we do try and be like. So I've had to just let all that go over the years and just sort of remold, reshape, and put it. And it's that has helped me a lot. It's all worked out well, you know. And then actually, you find that you can shape things in a different way. Playing, you don't have to be like anyone. You can be very original and actually do new things. And one thing that Janty Ben's mother had told Ranjan Ben, my mother, when she was very new in knowledge, which was really helpful. So Rajni Ben's mother, she was not like a white sari sister in the sense that she was like she was married and but she was the original like Gita Patkala here in London. So for many years she'd had Morley class in her house, even when Zindivan was a child. And then she was reading the Murli herself. But Zindivan was saying that when Daddy came to London, then Rajni then had to hand over reading the Murli. So he didn't say more than that. But I wonder whether in Rajni Ben's mind as well, that was like something she had to let go of. That, you know, that cannot also be easy when you've been reading the Murli and you've got a teacher coming from India, then they're going to expect because they're living in the center and also their daddy, and they're going to expect that they're going to read the Murli. And like you see in London as well, only the sisters who live in the center, they read the Murli, not anyone else. So what Rajni Bennett said to Ranjan Ben early was um, some roles, some tasks, therefore these sisters in a white flag. Because Ranjan Ben was also quite intellectual, into Gyan, to like to study and this. And it was just like the way she said in Hindi, ye white sari walo ka sari. That was just what she said. And I think Ranjan Ben felt a little bit hurt about that, like, at that time. But actually, you know, when you look over the years, it was really good advice, because it's understanding different roles. And actually, for the public as well, that works better. So if I try and be something that they are, it actually confuses it. Well, but let me be this something separate. Let them be who they are, and let me support that. So in that way, it's understanding that maybe you're not the person who has to give them all. And these, let's call the sister. Let her do that bit and let them learn from her. Let me look in another situation where maybe I am the right person for that. They won't listen to someone in the white side. Maybe I need to be the bridge there. Um, when I was working for a council, I used to be a school to work in school support services, so in Oxfordshire County Council, and we were all based in this very large building, all of the school support services, and we even had the children who are expelled from school. Their school was in Alder, so we had all of those teachers as well. It was a very difficult job because those children they don't behave. And also it's a very, very stressful job. So I just thought, okay, 3 p.m. Friday, I will organize a meditation. Whoever wishes to come. I had 40 people, like nearly the whole building came for this meditation. And they really appreciated it. Like final thing on a Friday, they've had such a stressful week. And I just did this weekly meditation. So there are many Brahmins like that. They're very creative. They use their place of work because they are the right instrument for that. It's not right to call up someone in a white sari. That wouldn't work, but they can benefit. So it's understanding our role. For example, next in the next year, I'm going to write a paper on Devi Janki's classes, like some of her classes, and publish it in a journal. Now that's like a good role for me. And then you can present the paper. It makes sense. It fits. Like it fits my role. So we've got to think like, what fits? And then serve that. Carry on. Yeah, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Yeah, yeah, definitely makes sense. Yeah, I'm really appreciating this understanding on the service aspect because it's a big aspect actually, which we tend to take it very gross uh, and we need to think about it in a subtle way as well because we're serving with our mind. So, as you say, we need to think about all the aspects to take on board. So I'm making notes. So, yeah, it's really, really helpful. And a lot of these topics has been in mind for some time. And yeah, so it's quite good to have some answers. And yeah, I was thinking about some of the aspects, like how do you relate, if you have time to, you okay to, yeah, okay. Just one more question. How do you uh, uh, relate, things you want to do for your body, for example, take time out to do exercises, walk, okay, walk I can do, and need to um, incorporate the spiritual aspects in that as well. But how do you actually have to make a real understanding? How do you incorporate that in our social life as well? Because like before, for example, I give example, I used to do exercises first thing in the morning, and now the routine has changed, waking up early to do other things, and going out in the morning that early, it's not feasible, and things like that. I go a bit later, but things like that. How do you combine the two? Obviously, we do need to take care of the body because it's quite important. And so, how do you incorporate, should I say, the two together?
Yes, it's a big challenge for us Brahmins. We're actually in a little bit of a advantageous position because I think it's even more of a challenge for the brothers and sisters living in the center because the centers are busy, there's always something happening, and also they're always cooking too much, right? So they're cooking and eating. So you see many of our brothers and sisters, they're too big as well. They're eating because, when you're cook, it's like you're just surrounded by food all the time, aren't you? And you don't want to waste the food and then eat the food, and it becomes like that. It goes around like that. So I think this thing of diet and exercise is a vital part of Brahmin life. And some Brahmins are just better and more disciplined in it than others. So partly it's just about, it's not to do with being a Brahmin, it's just about, as a human being, am I disciplined in my diet and exercise? But what Baba teaches us is to have the double knowledge. So historically, when we were new in Gyan, the culture of the Brahmin family was to think about diet and exercise as body conscious. And I mean, you know, Devi Janki would never have liked anyone taking any time into exercise and things like that. And Sister Joan, she left the body a few weeks ago during that message at her funeral and things. I remember her saying to me the early days, like, she brought herbal tea. And the sister in the center threw out the herbal tea. I think it was Sister Sudesh. She said, no, no, we only have chai. As Brahmins, we only drink chai. So it was like a very old-fashioned sort of Indian way of doing things. So even in London, the Brahmins, we were also taught that we shouldn't be thinking about this. And then we saw in the 90s the bigger change in the Brahmin culture. So now I think it's much more healthy and much more balanced. And that began talking a lot more like these Murlis that we're hearing at the moment. He begins talking a lot more about having this balance. And then I was talking with Sudesh then a couple of years ago, and I was reminding her as well of this when Jagdish Pai left the body in 2000. Baba had sent a message to Lady Gulzar where he said that the mistake the child made was he didn't keep the double knowledge of his body and soul. And I don't know if you remember last year there was one of the brothers in Motherban, I think it was Siddharth, and he was about 60 and he left the body quite suddenly. And Baba had said in the message for that as well that many of you, when something is not right, you don't go quickly enough to get it checked. And then it becomes a big thing then. So, okay, it's not this brother's fault. It wasn't like that. What Baba's point is that he's expecting us to actually look after our body. He's like, he, we've got all the facilities. There really isn't an excuse here. It's just the case of us being careless. So he puts all of this under the topic of careless. And Sudesh Didi was also saying to me that only really after Jagdishpa, after Baba said that about Jagdishpa, that all of the seniors began also doing this. So it's actually in Brahmin culture only 23 years that people have been thinking about this balance. Otherwise, it would have completely gone, I think, after Brahma Baba, because Brahma Baba was very balanced. We know he used to love his walk. He was like very, very routine, very, very. So he was like that. But I think the daddies were just very much into tireless things. They were very, very tired. So I think Daddy Genki used to feel like that was like the wasting time. You can. I had one brother who said to me, "Well, Daddy just said, lift this box. That's your exercise. Just put these boxes over there. That's your exercise." So it was that sort of thing. That karma yoga is exercise. You should have, but actually, of course, that doesn't matter. You need sort of like doing the opposite of your karma yoga is actually what your body then needs. And so I think now what I've seen in Madhuban over the last 10 years or 15 years is the influence of the doctors. I think they have brought a lot of improvements. And I noticed that after the groups come in Madhuban, Dr. Pran Masand and a couple of others, they do like group yoga after one. And I think they do it in Global Corporation House. I saw after that as well. Like they saw what they were doing in Madhuban, and they also had begun to do it in Global Corporation House sometimes, I thought. So I think now there is that understanding in the family that this is vital, and all you will get from Baba is, why didn't you do it? It's not like that. It's not like we can say to Baba, well, Baba, we were so busy serving and things, and he was just, well, You should have done it. And he's not saying to us that we don't do it. He's expecting us to have the maturity to find our balance, to set our routine. And do you remember it came in the Morley, maybe earlier this year on the Sunday, where Brother said that some children, they are tired at Amrit Layla and they fall asleep because they're serving till very late at night and then they are not alert at Amrit Layla. And Brother said in that Morley, do 1 hour's less service and go to sleep 1 hour earlier. But you got to make your priorities to be fresh for the next day. So that is talking to us about sleeping well as well. Sometimes that is one thing the Brahmins are very bad at talking about because it sort of is a Hindu yogi thing as well, like the Nindraji or Nindra yogi, because there's these yogis, sannyasis and things, they don't sleep at all or something like that. So you get that sort of tradition. And it comes in the Murli, and it was one of Nehru's phrases of that time, Aram Haram Hin. So you get all of that. But actually, we know from science very clearly that, and any doctors, again, I think the doctors are good influences, right, in the idea. And any doctor will tell you that your body repairs itself during sleep. The only time. White blood cells they're produced only when. So I definitely view sleep as part of health. And I very deliberately building sleep into my routine. Now my routine has changed. So I understand what you're saying because when I was living in London as well, I used to travel to the centre and it becomes awkward then to fit everything in. And then when we moved to the Midlands in 2005, I think, one of our brothers here, he had to go to work at 7. So he wanted Morley class at 5:30. That suited him. So since then, we've actually been in an early routine where everything finished by 5. And that has, I have to admit, that has helped me. Now, even because since COVID, we don't have anyone coming to the house anymore, and now the policy anyway is that the trustees don't want classes in people's houses. They just want like it at official centres. So we've not restarted in the bottom for people to come in the morning. And what I do now is I hear the morning at 5 a.m. and then I finish by about 5:30. And then of course I usually record twice, so that takes it to 6:30. And then I go back to sleep for an hour or so. So that has helped having this earlier start and finish of the morning time. So then because I find if I sleep later in the day, then I can't sleep at night. So I have to, if I'm going to sleep, it has to be really early. Otherwise, it's just better to stay awake than the whole day. So then I find it doesn't then interfere too much as I think. And then I found with my diet and exercise, it works better to control my weight if I fast. So I only eat twice per day. I eat at about 1:30, 2 o'clock, and then I eat at about 8:39. That's it. So I eat twice. So then I fast from 10 p.m. to 1 or 2 o'clock the next day. The exception being where I'm out for work, then out for breakfast and then not eating the middle of the day. So then there's a little bit of adjustment like that sometimes. But generally, I'm only eating twice per day. So again, that saves time, keeps it simple, keeps it controlled. So I would say then, and then every Friday morning, I'm someone who sometimes struggles. Like I don't like jogging or I've always been team sports, so I've always been a soccer player. I used to play at like county level and things. So now I'm old anyway. I don't play like that, but we have an older like senior football session in our just in the next village every Friday night. So I go and run around for an hour, um, like that. So that because it's quite intensive, like playing, and some of the other players are like 17 years old, things like so. They're like running really fast. And so what it does is it gives me a really good cardio, really strong level of cardio. Then twice a week, I do 1 hour of yoga session. Okay. And then twice a week, Ranjan and I walk. So in this way, it, you might not be able to do it every day like you were doing, but if you can have big intensive slots twice a week now or something, maybe that's the way to do it. And I find anyway, especially as we're getting older, like if I do a big cardio, it takes me like 2 days to recover. And like 2, 3 days. I can't even move. Like when I first began to play football again after long, like I didn't play for 2, 3 years during COVID and then I went back. I think like 5 days before I could even walk properly. So, we do need because our body will become very, and I feel it's part of being recovered because this is the same body when I'm 75. Right? Now, if at 45, I've done the right thing and I will age better. It's just, that is just reality. That is just reality. So I think Baba will look at all of it and he will say, okay, it was good that you did that then. So then when you are older, you then had a better chance of aging better.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. Yeah, very similar in terms of food. Eating twice a day is good. Yeah, that helps. But yeah, I appreciate your input on that. So yeah, I'm following that. But sometimes you just wonder. And yeah, it's Murli at later time. Actually, is that time in the middle? It's quite
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So,
It's a tricky one, but it's obviously each center is different. And at the moment in London, you've got people like Sister Suzette and Sister Janty. So it's worth meeting, like that. In my day as well, we had Daddy reading or Cindy Band or Sylvester Brand. So of course, it was worth taking the opportunity. We were coming and going a lot and traveling a lot. But then over the years, it's just like I think we're now at a point, and I think no one expects us to travel that much anymore either, because we
yeah,
couldn't manage it, and we've done all. So I think every Brahmin is different,
yeah.
and I think yeah, we can sort of get away with it as well now. But I think every Brahmin must make this all work within their particular role.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm trying to go to center more now, so it's in a different opposite direction because we couldn't go earlier. So now,
Exactly.
really appreciate the vibrations when we go to center. So yeah, so trying to do that now a lot more than and then incorporate the other bits in the. So no,
Yeah.
thank you. Very valuable. Very valuable. Thank you. Really
Well,
appreciate
I think you were a spokesperson for many today. I'm sure they had those similar questions. So I'm sure everyone will have appreciated that. So thank you so much for those questions and stimulating those thoughts. And all of you listening later on, as I've said before, remember these are only my thoughts and ideas. And sometimes I'm a little bit maverick compared to maybe your teachers at your centers will have different views. So, yeah, I'm not telling you that this is right. All I can tell you is what I do and what's working for me and what is my interpretation. Yeah. But overall, my main message to everyone is focus on the body. absolutely focus on the Murli. That is what we've got to study, and that is what we've got to put into practice, and then make this work within your role in the practice. So thanks, Ben, and thank you, everyone. Have a great week, everyone. Thank you.